Our opening keynote, as I mentioned, is Peter Lucas Jones of Te Aupori, Ngai Takoto, Te Raroa, and Ngāti Kahu, kind of all the iwi at the top of the North Island. And hopefully some of you get a chance to visit. It's a beautiful, beautiful area of New Zealand. Peter Lucas is the CEO of Te Hiku Media, leading groundbreaking work in Te Reo Māori language revitalisation through technology. He's at the forefront of developing natural language processing tools for Te Reo Māori, including speech-to-text and text-to-speech, systems that are fundamentally transforming how Indigenous languages can thrive in the digital age. A quote from Peter Lucas himself: "In the digital world, data is like land. If we do not have control, governance and ongoing guardianship of our data, as Indigenous people, we'll be landless in the digital world too." He currently serves as chair of Te Whakaruru Hau o Ngā Reo Irirangi Māori, which is the collection of Māori radio stations, and the deputy chair of Whakaata Māori, Māori TV, and brings deep expertise in Indigenous data sovereignty and AI-driven language. So he's going to talk to us about creating ethical Indigenous language AI systems. And yeah, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Peter Lucas.
Kia ora everybody, thank you for having me here this morning. He honore nui tēnei, te haere mai ki mua i a koutou i tēnei rā. Nō reira e tautoko ana hau. I ngā āhuatanga o te pūhiri i tū i te ata nei, ka whakaaro ahau ki te iwi nōna te mana i te whenua i tēnei takiwā o Aotearoa. I'd just like to pay my respects to the traditional owners of the land that we gather on today. It's always important to remember our past, present and future, and a place like Wellington has been a seat of authority in this country, Aotearoa, for many years, and it's been a different couple of years as we've seen things change, attitudes, and all those types of decisions that are associated with new regimes and ways of thinking that people perhaps thought had passed us by, but they're here again. And so it's important to remember what we're doing and what we do as people. And when we think about artificial intelligence and the decisions that people are making every day around advancing AI, one of the things that comes to my mind is Indigenous languages. And so I want to share a story with you about how Te Hiku Media, one of the 21 iwi radio stations here in Aotearoa, developed world-class technology, first of its kind, for an Indigenous language. And I'm going to share that journey with you. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Can you guys hear me? Okay. So leading AI for Indigenous languages. What we've achieved to date is an ASR model that transcribes Māori at an 8% error rate. And what that tells us is that our model is highly accurate. In fact, it's the most accurate of its kind. And that's because we have put accuracy front and center of everything that we do. When we think about how Indigenous languages have been alienated from Indigenous people, sometimes that story is closely associated with forcibly removing language from families as part of an assimilation process. We took that experience and wanted to understand how we could imbue the work that we did with values and principles associated with language revitalization and reconnecting people with content that they had been separated from. And when we think about the GLAM sector, galleries, museums and libraries, quite often it is the home of taonga, What is the place that they are housed? When we think about manuscripts, letters that have been written by ancestors, physical taonga, physical objects even, that are sometimes bones, sometimes heads. There's sometimes things that have an association with a past that we often don't really understand. And so we took that experience of coming from a tribal radio station and understanding how important culture is and language is. And what we thought is we wanted to make sure that anything that we advanced did no harm to the language, the culture, and the people that the language belonged to. And so how did we do that? We did that by building our own trustworthy AI infrastructure. And part of that journey included being accepted into an NVIDIA Inception program, which meant that we could acquire an NVIDIA Nemo toolkit. That toolkit was a bunch of GPUs that meant that we didn't have to spin up and train models in the cloud. But we also knew that there really wasn't a cloud. The cloud was a data center on somebody else's land, creating an environmental catastrophe somewhere else, out of sight and out of mind. Moving on from that, it's important to mention that we gathered 310 hours of speech and text pairs with over 2,500 people engaged in a Māori language reading competition. Absolutely unheard of level of engagement among researchers in the artificial intelligence industry, or just engagement with community generally. It doesn't matter how many work streams there are out there trying to engage with community. People were looking at us and saying, how on earth did you get 2,500 speakers of your language to share their voice with you? How did you do that? So whilst we taught computers how to speak Māori, which was absolutely profound, what was making people move even more was that we could speak to our people in a way that they understood and that they appreciated. And that gave us an opportunity to tag and label what is now the largest Māori language speech and text pair data set that anyone's talking about. And that is an achievement. We've recently worked alongside our sister language, Ōlelo Hawaii. Māori is a member of the Polynesian language group. There are other language families in the Pacific that include the Melanesian, the Micronesian. And when we think where they come from an even bigger language family called the Austronesian language family. And it stretches from the east coast of Africa, Madagascar, all the way up to Indonesia, goes up towards the Ainu people of Japan, and then through the Pacific, all of the Pacific, Easter Island in the far east of the Pacific, and Hawaii in the very, very north. And so what we did was work with the Kanaka Māori brothers and sisters who wanted to achieve something for their language similar to ours. Piggybacking on our success, we were able to fine-tune a model on 400 hours of tagged and labeled Ōlelo Hawaii, which was a similar competition modeled off our competition, but in Hawaii, including 1,300 speakers of Hawaiian. And there we have it, Indigenous partnerships, doing something different, leading leading something for the community. And it actually is a story, a profound story of partnership, because it has roots in the kohanga reo movement. It has roots in the revival of star navigation and wayfinding. We had the opportunity to take stock of how important those relationships were, and with our kaumātua, reinvigorate a conversation, not only about artificial intelligence, but the jobs of the future. The jobs of the future. Because whilst we were engaging with our people, whilst we were teaching computers how to speak Māori, there was something else occurring. It was capability building and capacity building. Because how many data scientists, engineers, and developers, designers are involved in the natural language processing industry? And I will call it an industry. How many of them are Māori or Pacific Island people? Not very many. So a big part of our journey was investing in our people, making sure that we weren't just creating technology to be the users of it, but we were making sure that our people were the developers of it too. Where did we come from? Well, as Chris mentioned, we're one of the 21 iwi radio stations of Aotearoa, New Zealand. We were established in 1990. Our tribal associations are with Ngāti Kuri, Te Aupauri, Ngai Takoto, Te Rarawa, and Ngāti Kahu. And I'm the chairman of the Te Aupauri tribe, Te Runanga Nui o Te Aupauri, a post-treaty settlement governance entity that is the home of the assets that were returned to our tribe to settle our historical claim for the injustices and atrocities committed against the Aupauri people. This particular iwi radio station, it has a strong association with claims that include the Māori language claim, the claim for frequencies, iwi radio frequencies, and then of course Y262 is a big collection within our archive. Y262 is the flora and fauna claim, and it has a portion in there with recommendations about Māori language. How long do I have to talk? Perfect. Because I'm from radio, so I can talk for ages. Now, we've got 30 years of corpus gathering experience, and when we think about what that means, that's 30 years of trust grown with the community. I like to throw these two pictures up because it represents the beginnings of our station. This is my two grandmothers and their sister on one side, and then their marae committee in the early 80s on the other side. But it's a nice reminder of where our station came from and what it was grown from. It was grown from their desire to ensure that language, native language, indigenous language, in this specific circumstance, Māori language, was not just an academic experience, but was retained as a method of communication, so that they could hear news, current affairs, topical issue discussion, political debate through talkback shows hosted by people from our kāinga with a desire to speak to anyone and everyone about anything that was important to them in native language. And so this is an important way that the community was able to raise the profile of local heroes. It was a way to encourage people to increase the proficiency of their active language skills and their passive language skills. So passive skills, of course, are reading, listening, and then active skills like speaking and writing. much of our data pipeline, which everybody needs for a data science project like this, requires a really close connection with data. And they became the source of our data. They were our puna raraunga, or our spring of data, and it continues to bubble up like fresh water today. And so in 2014, we started to digitize our collection. And you might think, wow, analog tapes. I don't even know when I last saw one. We've literally got hundreds of them, hundreds, if not thousands. And it is a huge job. And what I would also add is that there's often only one copy of that particular tape. So the care required to ensure the preservation of the tape during the process of digitization is extremely important. And you can't have somebody working on it that has never seen a tape before. Many of us that are from the before world will remember what's involved with ensuring that a tape doesn't turn into a big mess. So we had a bunch of older people that really took an active role in ensuring that these taonga, or these special items, were cared for throughout that process. And the reason that we wanted to digitize that is because 86% of our people do not live in our traditional area. So when we think about the members of our tribe, we go, okay, there are 18,000 members of this particular iwi. When we think about where they are today, everyone is living in different circumstances. We're not living in our natural environment like our grandparents did. In fact, people are making a way in the world. But having gone through an urbanization process and also lived through assimilation, many of these families don't have access to native speakers in their home. When we think about language acquisition and, of course, language proficiency, it's important to have access to people that you can have in-depth conversations with or be exposed to profound native speaker examples. And so what we wanted to do was make that content available, because we realized that many of our mokopuna or grandchildren, the first thing they do when they wake up is they pick up a device. The first thing that we do is check something on our phone. So how are we going to, as speakers of not only a minority language, but Indigenous languages are like the minority of the minority languages. So how are we going to do that in a way that was ethical? How are we going to do it in a way that upheld the principles that our people held so high? And so we had a meeting with our people in 2013 seeking not permission, but the authority to move forward with the digitization of our project. First of all was our vision. Whakatō kia poipoia kia mato te reo Māori o ngā haukainga o te hiku o te ika. And that is to instill, nurture and proliferate the Māori language of the villages of te hiku o te ika. And that was moved by Roi Matakaka and seconded by Heke Nuku Mai Puhipi, the late kaumātua Roi Mata from Te Aupōuri, and the late star navigator Hector Busby, Sir Hector Busby. It was decided unanimously. The next was whakamahia ngā hangarau me ngā tikanga whakatairanga o te ao hou, kia puta e te reo o te kāinga ki ngā uri i te ao whānui. Tirenia Mukapa moved that, seconded by Myra Bergen, who's 95 now. And the whare decided unanimously that we were to use technology instilled with our unique broadcasting experiences in the new world to ensure that our descendants throughout the world would have access to our content. So that was a big thing, because the last one was really about opening up our archives to teach computers to speak Māori. The first thing we did was build our big marae in the sky, because social media, the internet, and digital platforms are such an important part of making content available in today's world. We didn't want to use YouTube as a repository, or Facebook, or any of these more well-known platforms that people use, for social media interactions. Instead, we wanted to build our own whare. And so we built our whare kōrero, and much of that is the home of our live video streaming content. This week we will be live video streaming our intertribal kapahaka. Nothing competes with kapahaka, not even the rugby. When it comes to intertribal singing and dancing, haka is something that people not only are interested in, it gives us our best engagement. Because when we think about the content that we create, we're capturing content. And so we are kaitiaki of that content. We're not just the holders of it, we're the guardians of it. And as servants of our people, there are high expectations around how we take care of that content. So we do all sorts of stuff. We're doing interviews in the morning. We're doing, archival stuff in the afternoon. We have radio shows. We're doing speech competitions. And on Sunday, we will be live streaming the hui at Kohacon25 marae, where the Ngāpuhi tribes have asked the leaders of the Māori Party to come and explain themselves. My own tribe has many questions for them, because they fired our cousin Maria Meno for goodness knows what. But what I do know is the people in my village are sharpening their spears for the big welcome party. And it's really important to take situations like that seriously, because they become the topic of conversation. And the topic of everyday conversation is a place where we can find natural use of idiomatic expression, natural use of colloquialisms, natural use of all sorts of unique words that might not be found in common vernacular. And that is what we call the mita, or regional variation of te reo Māori. We would interview our elders, my aunt Tirei Niamu Kapa, and we would transcribe this manually. Transcribing manually native speakers is a big job, particularly if the people that you're getting to do the work have largely had contact with the language in an academic-only situation. So having access to this type of content is profoundly valuable for those second language learners. However, it is also a slow process, transcription, when you're working in those circumstances. And there was absolutely no way that we were going to get through all of our tapes that we had digitized manually, transcribing thousands of hours. So we decided to teach computers how to speak Māori. And the reason why we decided to teach computers how to speak Māori is because we wanted to create a response and a solution for the very, very aroha mai, I'll just turn that off. The very unique circumstances we found ourselves in aroha mai. I'm getting phone calls. I'm going to have to turn that completely off. And like I said, we created a competition. We created our own competition platform called Kōrero Māori. We developed more than 4,000 sentences for people to read initially. For example, ka whiriwhiria he komiti mo taua mahi, engari tainoa mai ki nāia nei, ka hore anō kia tutuki ngā mahi. They were sentences that people would read, they would listen to, and if they were happy with it, they could then save that sentence. However, it was a group competition, and people needed to be able to bring 7 people together because Māori communities are exactly that. Communities. There's a lot of group activity, whether it's at the marae, whether it's in your own whānau, whether it's upholding the practices of your own hapu or iwi, like in wānanga or tangihanga, or just participating in preparing a hākari, a feast. It's very much associated with working together. So we brought that to our competition platform. And through that, we had to find winners. We had to find winners. And we learned quickly that pronunciation is so important. Yes, it's fine to give it a go, but you still got to get it right. Now, I know that when we hear maunga, someone means maunga, but we can still take on board what somebody was intending to say. But when we get lots of mispronunciation of Indigenous language, what occurs is the meaning that the speaker is trying to convey can be obscured by the level of mispronunciation. So what we realized is that we needed to work out what was right and what was wrong. Was maunga wrong, or was it just kawa or sour to our ears? Maunga, we knew what it meant, but it wasn't pronounced properly. So along this journey, we realized that pronunciation modeling for Indigenous language was also important, because we needed to be able to give feedback to people about how they could improve without them feeling judged, without them feeling less for having had the experience. So we again looked at our traditional values, and instead of telling them what they got wrong, we would simply get them to repeat what we wanted them to improve. And we found that that was a way that could support them on their own journey. That's why we believed the power of language was so important, because it unlocks our culture. Language unlocks our culture. And when we think about our traditional wisdom and where it comes from, think about those language families that we talked about earlier. The Pacific, our languages are so closely related. And the body of knowledge that is connected to those languages is a body of knowledge connected by whakapapa, linguistic genealogy, but also shared bloodlines, shared stories of resilience that are sometimes hundreds or even thousands of years old. And so we were taking that information and unlocking it to create our own climate platform while this occurred. And why were we doing it? We were doing it because revitalization, preservation, and the promotion of te reo Māori is so important when we consider acquisition for the next generation. And so we wanted to create tech opportunities for Indigenous people, but at the heart of it, we still wanted to transcribe our archives, making them available for our future speakers, so that we could restore native sound to the mouths of people that had had it literally beaten out of them. How did we do it? We did it through open source tools, but more importantly, we did it because we had a passionate community. A passionate community that believed that our language must survive. And that's how we created automatic speech recognition tools that operate with such precision. Like I mentioned before, 316 hours and 10 days. That was the beginning. We now have thousands of hours because we're transcribing our interviews that we do with our whānau, with our hapu, with our iwi members, and our whanaunga relations every day. And that data helps to increase the accuracy every time we train a new model. The archaeology of sound was something that we really had to take on board when we started tagging and labeling pronunciation data. I kone ka whakatika atu ngā manuwhiri, ka waiata, ka haka. There are so many variations of mispronunciation that can occur. We were looking at phonemes, we were looking at long vowels, short vowels, diphthongs, where 3 vowels follow one another. All those types of things. Where do we as native speakers emphasize? Do we have a penultimate vowel, like those other languages of the Polynesian language family? No, we don't have a penultimate vowel. So taking on board the facts about what our language sounds like was extremely important. And for that to occur, we looked to those old people and native speakers of today to see what were the phonetical attributes that we needed to prioritize. And that's how we developed Rongo. If you got your phone, download Rongo. It's on the Android, or just go to the App Store. Please download it. We focused on trees and birds. But what I want you to have a look at is how we engage with people. We don't put any words there. They have to listen and mimic. And we wanted to follow the old wānanga style of listening and repeating, because our language, of course, is a language that has been documented since the arrival of the Pākehā. And there are a number of orthographic conventions that have been developed for te reo Māori, and there are preferences across different tribal groups around what orthography is preferred. Our style uses the macron, or the modern orthography. For me, consistency was really important. Let's just get one thing right first. And then, of course, we can branch out from there. But whatever we do first, let's make sure it's the world's best. And that's the story that I'm telling you. And that's how we started to work with our Hawaiian brothers and sisters. And it's a journey of strategic collaboration with Kamehameha, the Hawaiian Trust, that also support other charitable groups, and another group that translates newspaper articles. The Hawaiians, like Māori, had huge newspaper interest, Māori language newspaper interest. But the Hawaiians, they've got the largest indigenous text corpus in the world. So when you think about what that means for transfer learning, when we think about transfer learning, when we think about unlocking the body of knowledge that is the tūpuna kōrero of te moana nui a kiwa, we can actually track who we are through language We already know what blood runs through our veins. We don't need to go to ancestry.com to find out where we came from. We know that. What we wanted to do was to see what story language could tell us. Because the Pacific language opportunity, it provides us with a new way to collaborate, a new way to think about AI for the Pacific, AI for Indigenous repositories, AI in the GLAM sector for those that are actually curating content that they may not understand. Because the reality is we think about the world differently. And the kōrero tukuiho, or the ancestral knowledge that exists within native-speaking communities, it's all about observations. It's all about measuring the weather, the tides, the movement of things within the natural environment. Because language springs from the landscape. It springs from the environment. It is the carrier of the culture within which it is spoken. And so that information and knowledge and wisdom and the implementation of it has been the content that we have gathered for more than 30 years. Whether it's about what side of the tree do you scrape the bark from if you want to make a particular Māori medicine. And the old kuias will tell you, scrape it from the side that the sun shines on, because the other side is a poison. Now, if you didn't know that, and you just went and scraped the bark, goodness me, what a catastrophe. So what I can share with you is this is the type of content that we've not only gathered, but had to curate. And that's why I say, save our language and save this planet that we all call home. Because the body of knowledge that is natural expressions, colloquial and idiomatic, and the complex vocabulary that we have for the fauna and flora, whether it's in my particular area or somebody else's particular tribal area, it could in fact be lost without hope of retrieval if we were to lose our language. Our whole capacity as Māori people, and in fact as people of Aotearoa New Zealand, could realistically cease to exist. And it's important for us to recognize when we think about the world's remaining biodiversity, 80% of it exists in indigenous territories throughout the world. Language is the key to culture. When we think about a language dying, it dies in silence. It dies alone with the last speaker. It dies alone. And it's like your library has just burnt to the ground, but no one can see it. And there's not a person left to put out the fire. And so what we wanted to do was empower communities by an example to lead the change that they need. We don't need outsiders saving us with capitalism. What we needed was compute, data, and access to algorithms, and a passionate community. And that's what the story's about. We know that in Aotearoa there is a compute capacity problem. Researchers sometimes wait more than 6 months for access to GPUs. Cloud options in Aotearoa are extremely expensive. You can pour a lot of money into cloud options, and have very little money left to pay the people that have to do the work. And current providers, right here in Aotearoa, don't meet the very strict data sovereignty requirements that the New Zealand public, I believe, have expectations of. And researchers and the wider industry are starting to demand. So when we think about what that means for advancing technology in Aotearoa, it means that we have to find solutions for home, for Aotearoa. And I'm sure that other language speakers want to find ways of securing their data as well. So we believe that part of our solution is to provide GPU compute capacity with, kia ora, once you say things like that, you should look around the room. Because at some point, these things have to pay for themselves. So how do you partner with like minds, with people that share the same interests as you, with people that could perhaps become part of a consortium, with people that understand the sector and the needs, not just in the language sense, but also in the data sovereignty sense of what's required. So we build tech for Indigenous languages, but why we've excelled at that is also because of the partnerships that we've created. We've created partnerships with Catalyst, kia ora. We've created partnerships with Radio New Zealand. We've created partnerships with the Abundance Intelligences Group in Canada, which is a consortium of Indigenous developers looking at advancing AI for a number of things. We've also taken that opportunity to create our pronunciation model, the whare kōrero that provides access to the 21 iwi radio stations. Kaituhi is our, do I have 10 more minutes? Kaituhi is our bilingual speech transcription model. And we've also created synthetic voices. Why have we done that? We've done that because accessibility is real. When we think about speech to text, it's actually not just all about us. There is a non-speaking community. There's a blind community. There are people that are vision impaired, that are highly literate and have the right to participate in this world as well. So that was the thinking behind the other items that we wanted to provide to the community. One of the things that I did this morning is I went on to, I like DuckDuckGo. Do you know DuckDuckGo? Yeah. I was like, oh, what does DuckDuckGo have to say about this? So I wrote in, e noho tamariki mā. Now, I just talked about how accuracy and precision is so important. And the translation for e noho tamariki mā was be a white child. That is absolutely incorrect. E noho means sit down, tamariki, children, mā, plural. Mā does mean white in a different cultural context. What I'm talking about is getting it right and ensuring that big tech don't further alienate us or further harm our languages by giving incorrect translations like this. How many people go online to get a translation for another language? How many people want to have access to correct information? This is an example that is not only extremely incorrect, but it perpetuates colonial biases. When we think about the story of children, Indigenous children, and their experience with education in Australia, in Canada, Even here in Aotearoa, it is not a happy story. In fact, it's a very sad story, and it's one connected with white assimilation. And we get a response like this, e noho tamariki mā means be a white child. But that's very wrong. So what I'm talking about is benchmarking and how those decisions must be prioritized and led by the expert speakers within communities. Language context must be understood. One word can mean more than 7 things in our language. Moe means sleep. Moe, you could have had a dream. Moe, someone could have died. Moe, someone could have got married. The list goes on and on. But what I'm saying is cultural context and natural language processing is absolutely important. And that's why we developed our kaitiakitanga license, our data license. And that governs the way that people access our API, because 65% of the New Zealand female jail population are Māori women. 65%. 55% of the New Zealand male jail population are Māori men. Those figures are staggering. And so when we think about how language technology can be used in other circumstances, we also want to ensure that it is not used for tracking and surveillance in our communities or in ways that further discriminate and persecute against the members of our tribes, and also that it's not used to build corpora for people to then go and do what we've done and then sell our language back to our mokopuna as a service by groups of people that look like those that beat it out of their parents' and their grandparents' mouths. So mining Māori data for commercial gain is something that we consider, particularly when we know that the land has all been taken and now culture is being appropriated in ways for commercial gain. These are things that we have had the opportunity to consider in the context of the work that we do. These are our APIs. Get in contact if you guys want to use them for all sorts of reasons. I'm going to showcase them to you now. And I wanted to close by saying data is land. Data is land. And if we're not creating digital real estate, I call it real estate, people might find that a little bit confronting. But if we don't have digital real estate in the world of artificial intelligence, then our people will be landless there too. And so I think it's important that we take on board the realities of this journey and breathe life into a dream about the jobs of the future when we do this. Kia ora, everybody. Okay, I'll just quickly do this. So this is our streaming. Kia ora koutou katoa, e mihi ana hau kia koutou I tēnei rā. This is our live streaming speech to text, bilingual. This is bilingual. First in the world, bilingual. I speak New Zealand English as well, so what we've focused on is the fact that as Māori language speakers, we are code switchers. Ka huri anō a hau ki te reo Māori me tīmata anō tēnei rorohiko ki te tuhi I ngā kupu Māori e taka mai ana I taku māngai. E maringi mai ana I taku waha. Nā te mea I ngā hiahia hau ki te kōrero I te reo. Me mōhio hoki tēnei rorohiko ki te tuhi I tēnā kōrero. And so we now have this, and when you think about conferences, when you think about lecture theatres, when you think about live content, whether it's on television or on your phone, how great to have something like this, not only to enhance your experience as a speaker of New Zealand English or Te Reo Māori, it's a way to provide accessibility for people that may not have the ability to read, or they may not be as highly literate as you, and can use it as a way to write emails if they're vision impaired or whatever. Anyway, he mea tēnā hei whakātu atu kia koutou. Kia ora. And here are our voices. So this is my cousin's voice. I'll just say, I have this, what I will share with you is, it's not spelling proof. So you've got to it is going to write, it's going to say what you write. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa, he mea tino nui ki te haere mai ki konei i tēnei rā. I tēnei rā. Tēnā koutou katoa, he mea tino nui tēnei, ki te haere mai, ki konei i tēnei rā. Okay, let's turn that on there. Oh, heck, taihua. I might have to just go like this. I like to do demos. Like most people that do this stuff never want to do a demo because they're like, it's not going to work. I'll just ring up my whānau and go, hey, fix it. Yeah. Okay, so this is Huriana.
Tēnā koutou katoa. He mea tino nui tēnei ki te haere mai ki konei i tēnei rā.
So there we go. And then there's this one. We did it in Hawaiian as well.
Tēnā koutou katoa. He mea tino nui tēnei ki te haere mai ki konei i tēnei rā.
So, okay. So, taihua. Oh, never mind. How do I... Oh, that's like my 10,000 emails that I haven't... I'm like, don't email me. Send me a text message. DM me. No. Okay. Also, we've done a bilingual one. So I'll write something bilingual. But this is a little bit tricky. Because when you think is it one or is it one? Is it take or is it take? Is it more or is it more? So there are a bunch of words that, occur orthographically in English that occur in Māori. So when we think about that, we're having to go, okay, we need to work this out. So if anyone has any idea, please help us out. Kia ora. Kia koutou. Kia ora kia koutou. I'm very happy to share this journey with you. Ngā mihi kia koutou katoa. So that's because some people emails and stuff you'll have Māori place names in them. There might be a smattering of Māori words. Native speakers of Te Reo Māori might insert English words and put them into Māori sentences. So when you have code switching, there's a lot of borrowing of different words as well. So we wanted to make technology that was actually user-friendly.
Kia ora kia koutou. I'm very happy to share this journey with you. Ngā mihi kia koutou katoa.
So that's that. And then if we were to look at what's happening with our screen reader, we developed a screen reader, a prototype screen reader as well. And the reason for that is we wanted to be creating things that were helpful for people that needed technology right now, for perhaps different reasons to you and me. Okay, what has Auntie Markere got to say? Here we go. So we just go like that.
Ka nui tā mātou kōrero tahi kia makere mutu. I tēnei uiui ko tāna. He whakaputa I ona whakaro. Mō ngā kaupapa maha kua taha ake nei. Anei ana kōrero.
Yeah, so that's an example of the stuff that we're doing. We're in the process of developing a consortium as well to apply for that AI fund. Yeah, so if anyone wants to talk about that as well, there is a $70 million artificial intelligence fund that is available for people to put, or groups, consortia, to put in proposals for, it's like a 1,500 word expression of interest for a project that lasts about 7 years. And it's important to be able to show that you can commercialize your tools. You can commercialize your products, because you can pour a lot of energy into data science and the results of it just live in an article in somebody's journal. And for us, we wanted to prioritize making tools available to the community in ways that were not only meaningful, but helpful and enhancing the way that intergenerational transmission of language and culture was and could occur. So we have onboarded thousands of customers and users now, and that story of growing a customer base is extremely important. But the reality is for these things to really excel, we need to work together with like minds, with people that share the values and principles that we do, perhaps in different ways, but at the core of it, people want to do good and not be harmful. And so that's the approach we've taken as we've grown our relationships with other key providers of compute, data, and of course, like I mentioned earlier, algorithms. So we're better known internationally than we are at home. Yeah. And so in Māori they say, kei tōna kāinga, kei tōna whare, te poropiti e hapa ana I te honore, which means in their own home and in their own village, prophets have no honour. So thank you for having me here today to let me share this story with you guys, and I hope you enjoyed it. Kia ora mai anō tātou.